Hi there, my name is Kate Dugdale. I'm the Education and Interpretation Specialist here at the National Nordic Museum, and I'm so excited to welcome you to virtual Nordic Stories. Today we are going to be reading My Life at the Bottom, The Story of a Lonesome Axolotl by Linda Bondestam. And before we get into the book, watch this clip from Linda Bondestam about the making of this book.
Hello, my name is Linda Bondestam and I'm going to tell you a little about my book, My Life at the Bottom, The Story of a Lonesome Axolotl. And here you can see an axolotl. Do you know what an axolotl is? I actually didn't until 4 years ago, when I saw a photo of a very, very strange animal on a trip to Italy. It looked like a smiling alien or a baby. Sweet in a way, but also very strange. I immediately knew that I had to make a book about him, and I started reading everything I could find about this animal and searching the web. And I suddenly realized that it was a really interesting creature. He didn't only look very special, he was like no other animal. An axolotl is a bit like a superhero. It can regenerate. This means that if it loses a leg or an arm, or actually even organs, it can regrow them. And this is quite a fantastic talent. Imagine if we human beings could do the same. It used to live in a lake district in Mexico, but nobody knows if it still exists. You can see it in zoos, and it's also possible to have an axolotl as a pet. I can see at least 3 of them. I find it really heartbreaking that so many animals are disappearing, and when I was working on this book, I quickly realized that it had to be about climate change as well. And I think that the axolotl is a perfect main character because of this ability to regenerate and always renew himself. It's a bit like our planet. Nature always has a possibility to survive. At the same time, it was so important to me to make a story that raises questions and that is fun and sweet and that makes you want to go out and explore nature.
So now we'll read My Life at the Bottom, The Story of a Lonesome Axolotl. And that's what an axolotl looks like. Once upon a time, the world was newborn. There was sea and there was land and little creatures bobbing and babbling. Love was in the air, and gradually there appeared lots of downy, fluffy, scaly, prickly things, cheeping and chirping. The world grew older and new creatures arrived. Some disappeared, but the big lugs spread out and multiplied. And one day, in the beautiful lake behind the tower with the glowing hamburger, something amazing happened. Ta-da! In a forest of seaweed, there was me, a rare and beautiful little axolotl going for my first ever swim. I dived headfirst and bobbed up and down with style. I zipped to the left and then zipped to the right. I let myself free fall, then darted super quick into a double somersault. The leaves swirled around like birthday confetti wherever I swam. So graceful and yet so lonesome. Out of 987 eggs, mine was the only one that had hatched. Who knows? Maybe I was the last axolotl in these waters. The water was teeming with food, plankton, mosquito larvae, and crayfish. I was having a great time in my little corner of the world. Now and then I would swim up to the surface to look at the funny big lugs. Sometimes they threw exciting treasures into the lake. I got bigger and grew arms and legs, 8 little fingers, and 10 little toes. It was time to start school. In my class, there were 10 fledgling fish, 11 tiger salamanders, and 13 snails, but only one axolotl, me. We learned a lot of important things. Some of the important things they're learning: an axolotl loses a leg or two. It's not the end of the world if they do. It can grow new ones. A young tiger salamander and a young axolotl are very similar, and lots of other things too. I made friends with a few of the tiger salamanders. We collected treasures. One of them was magical. Sometimes we had big lug parties and danced like those two-legged creatures on their boats. One morning, all of a sudden, the tiger salamanders left. They had grown lungs and went to go live on land. My life became very boring. I cleaned algae from my collection. Day and night I searched for my friends, but oh, how different the world was. Try as I might, I never managed to find the tiger salamanders. You can see him right there. Time passed. I found a jacuzzi, but it was no fun without company. Plus, the bubbles gave me red spots on my skin. New creatures appeared, but I felt more lonesome than ever. Sometimes I watched exciting videos, but my life at the bottom had reached new lows. One day, the water was strangely warm. Above the surface, the air was hot, and the skin around my nose went all dry and scaly. Trembling with fear, I returned to the lake bed. The water tasted of soot, but it was still as soft as ever. I fell asleep to the sound of beautiful music and dreamed of a happier time. Suddenly, I was torn from my lovely sleep. My whole world was swirling around and I was flung up, up, up. A raging monster wave hurled me out of the lake and into the world. I could feel the wind tearing at my tufty gills. The water whirled and hissed. And there he is, going all over the world. I crashed into something cold and see-through. Oh no, I lost an arm. Everything went quiet. When I woke up, I couldn't believe my eyes. I raised my new hand carefully and said, "Hello." Together, we set off to explore our new home. The lake was bigger now, and the water was just the right amount of cloudy. My new friend darted around, shaking up the leaves and bobbed up and down with style, and then suddenly, a triple somersault. As for me, I played dead and let myself free fall like a sinking tin can, and then suddenly shot forward. For hours we chased each other through the endless green of the seaweed forest. The water bubbled with something brand new. Soon, we became parents to 987 little ones. They swam around waving their little tails with curious smiles. No one knew where all those big lugs had gone, but we didn't give it much thought. My life at the bottom had become the tops. And that's the end of this book, but now I'll show you how to make a craft inspired by this book so you can have your very own axolotl just like this. All right, so we are going to make little axolotls like this, inspired by the book that we just read, My Life at the Bottom, The Story of a Lonesome Axolotl. So here's what you're gonna need. You're gonna need a plastic spoon. I have a black spoon, but you could use any color of plastic spoon, that's totally fine. You're gonna need pipe cleaners. Again, any color is totally fine. It's great to get creative. You're gonna want construction paper. You'll want scissors, glue, and maybe tape. Tape's a little bit optional, but definitely you'll need glue. And finally, you will want some googly eyes like this. So the first step is gonna be deciding on what colors to use. So I think I will use red for my axolotl's gills and tail. So you'll cut out a tail shape, which is really just a rounded out long rectangle. It's essentially just a rectangle with a curved edge here. I think this is a little bit big, so I'll make it even smaller. You're going to tape that onto your spoon. If you don't have tape, you can use glue. It will look something like this. Next, I'll cut out the gills. The gills on these axolotl crafts, they are a little bit spiky. So what I would do is cut out a small rectangle that's no longer than the bowl part of the spoon, and then just trim it to make these triangular shapes on the edge. And that's what I'll do now. If you don't want your gills and your tail to match, that's totally fine. Definitely get creative with it and make it however you want it to look. As we learned in the story and as we saw, axolotls can look totally different. There's a lot of different colors that they can be. The main axolotl in the story was white with pink gills, so that could be an option for you if you can't decide on which colors to go with. So I've cut out a rectangle and I've made these triangular shapes on the edges. And what the next step will be attaching those to the inside of the bowl of the spoon so that it looks like this on the outside. What you'll want to do is, I think tape is a good way to attach it, but again, glue works just fine. We'll put a piece of tape right here on the edge, and you'll tape it into the bowl of the spoon. It will look like this on the inside, and look like that on the outside. And you'll do the same thing for the other side. That's what it will look like inside and outside. So now we have our axolotl structure done. We have our tail and our gills. The next step is going to be legs. I am going to go with striped legs today. And you don't really need that many pipe cleaners to do this. I would say you will want a little bit of a pipe cleaner, maybe like a third of a pipe cleaner to make 2 legs. I'll show you what I mean. So I'll cut this pipe cleaner into a smaller piece, and I'll wrap it around the spoon and twist it to lock it in. And it will kind of look like this. I'll do the same thing with another piece. So that's what it will look like. And then I will cut this last piece here again in half. Make sure you are using not very fancy scissors if you're cutting pipe cleaners, because if you have really sharp scissors, it will dull the scissors to cut through the wire in the pipe cleaner. So with my smaller pieces, I'm going to make little feet. I think I'm going to need a little bit more than 1 pipe cleaner for the way that I've done this. So maybe what I'll do is I'll have my axolotl have 2 yellow feet and 2 striped feet, which is a very interesting look. But again, axolotls can look a lot of different ways. So maybe one day I'll see an axolotl that has 2 striped feet and 2 yellow feet. Okay, so now my axolotl has gills, legs, and a tail. Final step is putting on his eyes. For this, I really recommend using a wet glue like this, like Elmer's or any other kind of craft glue. Glue stick is not going to be a strong enough stickiness to make googly eyes stick onto the spoon. I've gone with blue eyes for my axolotl, but you can use any color of googly eyes. And if you have a spoon that is not black, you could draw on eyes. You don't even have to use googly eyes. And there you have it. Now you have your very own axolotl inspired by the book that we just read, My Life at the Bottom, The Story of a Lonesome Axolotl by Linda Bondestam. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time.